Let's jump right into this explainer. Picture a weary, cynical traveler stepping out from the towering gates of a gilded city. He's leaving behind all the comfortable fictions of society and walking directly into the harsh, unforgiving glare of the desert noon. Now, to be clear, he's not a knight on a crusade, and he is certainly not a prophet bringing good news. No, he is something far more dangerous to the established order. To wander out in this barren landscape is to act as a master text critic, a philologist. Historically, in ancient manuscript culture, a philologist was someone who studied corrupted holy texts to dig out their original meaning. Usually we picture a dusty, harmless academic squinting at old parchment, right? But our traveler applies this exact discipline to the very bedrock of human speech and morality. He submits our deepest, most treasured beliefs to the surgical blade of logic. He doesn't look at sacred texts with awe or even with outright hatred. Instead, he looks at them with a cold, detached curiosity, asking one simple question: what human hand actually wrote this deceit?
He carries absolutely no swords, no rations, just the jagged quill of a master critic. Imagine him kneeling there in the bone-white dust of the desert, totally isolated. His singular mission is to use these sharp instruments of reading to completely dismantle the cozy, comfortable shelter of absolute truths that civilization has built for itself over millennia.
Section 1. Instruments of the Wanderer.
So, out here under the absolute verticality of the midday sun, there are literally no shadows left to hide in. The traveler's task is absolutely not one of religious devotion. It is a cold, highly detached surgery. You see, through centuries of copying, our holy texts were heavily corrupted by scribal errors and pious interpolations. The traveler uses his tools to clinically cut away these outright forgeries. They've grown like a thick, suffocating moss over the original soul of humanity, and he's slicing it all away to see what, if anything at all, actually lies beneath.
Section 2. The Ghost of Tradition.
Out of nowhere, a shrieking ghost of a priest materializes, a terrifying phantom representing the heavy, crushing weight of religious tradition. This shadow clings blindly to the comforting fictions of the past. It just watches the traveler in absolute horror, screaming at him, calling him a literal monster for abandoning the sanctuary of absolute truths. How dare he prefer the harsh, unfeeling reality over the warm embrace of community and faith? That the ghost's voice isn't powerful. It's just a desperate rasp of wind against limestone. It's begging the traveler to stop, pleading with him not to dismantle the beautiful, gilded city of cherubim they've spent centuries building. But you know what? That sheer panic of the ghost is met only by the absolute indifference of the desert winds. The barren landscape doesn't care one bit about the priest's holy city, and neither does our wanderer. The traveler doesn't even flinch. He responds to this shadow with a cold, cynical tone dripping with absolute disdain for these theological whims. "Why do you tremble before these ink-stained lies?" he asks. For him, the company of men and the comfort of fictions only cloud his vision. He is here for the raw, unpolished truth, staring with absolute apathy at the total death of this religious illusion.
Section 3. Surgery upon the word good.
Think of human language like a giant cliff face showing millions of years of rock strata. The original bedrock text is at the very bottom, but over centuries it gets buried under layers of pious interpolations, scribal errors, and outright forgeries. Our traveler takes a word so old it has essentially become geological, and he begins to dig relentlessly through this suffocating moss of the priests just to find its root. He grips the word good and submits it to a brutal etymological surgery. What he finds is fascinating. In the Homeric age, good simply meant noble and strong, the virtues of the warrior aristocrat. But over time, through centuries of deep resentment, that meaning was entirely inverted. The meek and the self-denying took the word as a form of cultural revenge. Think about what that actually means for us today. The very foundations of what you and I consider right and wrong might just be the inherited, simmering revenge of the ancient world.
The sheer devastation of this critique is absolute. The master critic effectively strips away all the metaphysical layers of civilization. He exposes our deepest, most cherished moral categories as mere accidents of time, born of conquered people's revenge. And he simply stands there in the desert, watching the ink of old, sacred superstitions just fade away into the barren limestone. It's the absolute death of religious truth, viewed with total scientific indifference, almost like watching a simple chemical reaction play out.
Section 4. The Dawn of Noon.
So,
The sun sits directly overhead. The absolute verticality of the midday sun means that the ghosts of his fathers no longer stretch across the sand to pull him back into the past. The shadows of old superstitions shrink into absolute nothingness beneath the fire. For the very first time, because he's no longer navigating by the stars of dead man, the vertical light of reality grants him the true sight of his own feet. This dawn of noon is the violent, painful birth of a mind that simply no longer needs gods to exist. He systematically destroys the false idols. With a deeply cynical satisfaction, he casts the corrupted manuscripts straight into the heat haze, letting the fire of the sun entirely consume them. By burning these ink-stained lies, he finally, truly purchases the deed to his own intellect. He looks at his own reflection in the shimmering, sweltering air and asks mockingly, "Why do you weep for a home built on scribal errors and theological whims?" He's done mourning the lost paradise of official charts. He is now a pioneer who has boldly claimed the empty, scorching desert entirely as his own.
Section 5. Sovereign of the Unmapped. That noonday heat has completely transformed the horizon. His mind is now a blank vellum, a clean slate waiting for a hand bold enough to write its own law. He holds his surveying instrument like a scepter over the unmapped horizon. He is the sovereign ruler of this new, terrifyingly empty reality. Because, you see, the zenith of his wandering isn't about finally reaching some grand destination. It's the profound realization that nature's cold indifference is the only honest master. He's earned the divine right to be the architect of his own purpose. The gods are gone, the manuscripts are burned to ash, and man is finally the measure of the stars. The maps of what humanity wished to be true have been completely erased by the harsh, glaring light of reality. So, the question I leave you with is this: will you have the courage to draw the lines of what you will on this unmapped horizon? Can you break free from those comfortable fictions, endure the cold, stark isolation of the master critic, and face the glaring truth of the midday sun?